Hi, everyone. Natasha Trenev here, and we have a wonderful session today. It's called The Truth About Probiotics, How to Transform Your Health with me, your host, Natasha Trenev. And I'm delighted to have Mariah Haroon with me, who is a clinical dietitian and worked in the hospital scene and now has her own practice with wonderful patients in West Los Angeles. And I'm going to let her give you a little bit more of her background, and then we'll jump into this really important information that we need to share with you today.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Natasha. I'm so excited to be on the session today. Definitely a very interesting topic for me in my practice. Again, my name is Mariah Haroon. I'm a clinical dietitian over at Glendale Memorial Hospital. Also have my private practice, and I see clients for a variety of reasons. Most of my clients are with me for weight management, but as like with any other dietitian, we see a whole host of people who want to manage their acute or chronic diseases through nutrition. So IBD, IBS, ulcerative colitis, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, all sorts of things, cancer. Probiotics is something that has come up over and over during my practice, both in the clinical and the private practice setting. So I'm very interested.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, just for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, just know I've been in this field for 56 years. I've set standards for yogurt, kefir, probiotic labeling standard in 1995 that was read into congressional record, sat on multiple committees for standards in the dietary supplement field, and was part of a troop label program with an organization until members decided they really didn't want to participate because it wasn't good for business. So I'm here to really explain to you and share with Maria and everybody else by getting feedback from her and telling you the story, why it's so important to understand why bacteria are so important to our overall health. There's some facts that I need to share with those of you who are joining us for the first time. You are more bacteria cells than you are human cells. There's approximately just 100 trillion bacteria that line that 27 feet of GI tract. Bacteria everywhere in your blood, in your brain, in your organs, anywhere on your skin. Huge amounts of bacteria to the point where we are called a hybrid of bacteria and human cells that has to form a unity and an understanding, a mutual understanding with each other to make us, the host, live a happy and healthy life. And unfortunately, because of our careless use of chemicals in our environment and our food, it's to the point where we've done large damage to the microbiota in our gut and to our microbiome. And by the way, for those of you who are not familiar with what the microbiome is, it literally means the sum of all the genetic material found in those 100 trillion bacteria that line your 27 feet of GI tract. And they have, the bacteria have many more genes than we do. And actually, the toxins they produce can actually turn on and off genes. Your genes don't turn themselves on and off by themselves. They have to be turned on and off by your perception of reality and the toxins that you ingest via your food, air, and water, or the toxins the bacteria can produce under certain conditions in your intestinal tract. And so what we want to do is make sure that whoever is selling you the probiotic actually has a background in probiotics, has vertical knowledge, not horizontal knowledge. Vertical knowledge means you understand fermentation, you know how to culture these bacteria, you know how to stimulate them to do the best for the human host without adding chemicals or things that are detrimental to the human host. And that's a big task. And most people don't want to bother with that. And so they'll run clinical trials, use a certain strain in a certain environment that they produce for the clinical trial, then make claims about the strain, which is true, but then they don't sell the product to the end user in the same format that it was used in the clinical trial. And then many people get disappointed and they said, oh, I've tried probiotics and they don't work. Then there's another class of people who say, well, I eat fermented foods. And so since I set the standard for yogurt and kefir in this country, introduced both products to the public, just like I did with probiotics, Most people don't understand what bacteria should be in yogurt, what cannot survive, and you cannot get adequate amounts of any probiotic bacteria, even if you ate gallons of yogurt or drank gallons of kefir, because unfortunately, in this day and age, they're only functional foods, and they're not going to be able to help the 80% of our healthcare dollar that's spent on chronic disease in this nation and climbing. And just to give you some stats, autism rates are at 1 in 32, 1 in 22 in the state of California, and rising to reach 1 in 2 by 2030. Attention deficit among children is 1 in 6. Anxiety is in the same level. And a lot of these statistics just keep growing exponentially, and really nothing significantly is done. And as Mariah so well put it, she has patients that come in with colitis, Crohn's, inflammatory bowel disease. People are not digesting their food, and they're putting Band-Aids on a problem that's huge, that needs to be taken care of. And so Mariah was kind enough to prepare some questions, and I said, look, don't feel bad. These are questions that everybody asks, and I'm happy to have a discussion. And I want everybody to feel like they're a little bird listening to the two of us talk. And if that little bird wants to ask us questions, we're happy to answer your questions to the best of our knowledge so that we can broaden everybody's knowledge in this field. So Mariah, go ahead.
Yeah, so no, I just wanted to kind of streamline our conversation here. There are so many questions that I have for my clients, and then I have just as a consumer too as well. So, Natasha, I see, as I said, like in my clinical setting, I see probiotics being given as almost like a order set, a part of protocol when patients are experiencing symptoms of diarrhea. So diarrhea related to colitis, enteritis, C. diff infection, any of those. Not IBD related diarrhea, but infection related diarrhea. Part of the protocol is giving probiotics. Right. The other type is when my own clients for my private practice, right from the get-go, the question that I get asked after they tell me why they need to see a dietitian is, what kind of supplements can I take? And as a dietitian, I've always, because of my training, I've always tried to put nutrition first. So, you can manage a lot of symptoms for acute and chronic diseases by increasing or decreasing a certain nutrient in your food, in your daily diet. But if you do have a deficiency, your intake should be able to tell me that. On top of that, lab values will confirm if someone has a deficiency. And then I can recommend a supplement. Generally, I try to stay away from recommending supplements if something can be corrected by diet. But it seems like probiotics are something that one must take in conjunction to a healthy diet, because there is no real deficiency of microbiome. Am I correct? We're looking at a dysbiosis, but not really a deficiency, right?
Yeah, well, both terms can be applied, because the deficiency means that you don't have the proper diversity. And by taking many strains of probiotics is not going to increase your diversity. That's one bit of information that's been completely convoluted. And second of all, you need to take the probiotics that evolved with Homo sapiens, that are native to your small intestine, native to your large intestine, are part of your transient flora, and have coexisted with us and only been helpful under all conditions, and never turned against the human host at any quantity. And the reason we have switched the paradigm here is because of those 1,000 chemicals that are found in our food, in our air, and in our water. In fact, even the microplastic business now is exploding information that people are afraid of the microplastics that they're getting everywhere in their food, and is causing very big concerns and health problems. So I always tell people, don't blame me. I'm just a messenger. I'm not trying to sell you a product. I'm sincerely interested in improving the chronic state of illness. And when you have a dysbiosis, it doesn't mean it's a dysbiosis in only one area of your GI tract. A dysbiosis means that it's not an optimal composition of the microbiota in certain places in your GI tract. And that dysbiosis can be limiting the amount of absorption you have. It can be limiting the breaking down of minerals because it's not maintaining the slightly acidic condition necessary in the GI tract for that mineral absorption to take place. Dysbiosis can be caused because the immune system is overreacting to certain stimuli, which it can't seem to control, so it keeps overreacting. And fortunately for us, the bacteria that I have studied and have been in the literature for 100 years do communicate with our immune cells. About 80% of them line that 27 feet of GI tract, and that communication has been since the beginning of our existence. And they communicate with photon light emission, and they really do talk to each other. The beneficial bacteria will alert immune cells when they're being fooled to open up the tight junctures and allow these not so friendlies to get inside of our bloodstream. And so it's an amazing, fascinating interaction that happens every nanosecond of your life. As we're sitting here and talking, billions of those transactions are taking place. And what we have done is we've disrupted that, especially in westernized cultures. And I'll give you a couple of reasons. I mean, we could sit here and talk for an hour and I could tell you why it's been disrupted. One of the most important thing is that women in North America, less than 7% of them are able to pass on the correct bacteria, which is called Bifidobacteria infantis, to their child, even if it's delivered vaginally and breastfed. It's something that's happened in our environment. So that's why the child is already has a handicap, because this Bifidobacteria infantis is one of the ones that we have found. We have not found another one that is directly stimulated by human milk oligosaccharides. In other words, human milk was designed to specifically stimulate the growth of this bacteria and should represent about 80 to 90% of all the microbiota that's in the healthy infant's GI tract. And if that doesn't happen, then that tolerance that needs to be established of the bacteria and the food going across the intestinal wall is not established. If that tolerance is not established while the infant is still forming, then normal food becomes an allergic reaction. Children have attention deficit because they're not absorbing the correct amount of nutrients. They're not able to break down their food in a sufficient molecular size for that to transgress the intestinal wall. And, again, we have this huge problem, which we just tack a label on and say it's dysbiosis, but it can be pervasive along the intestinal wall, and it can be, measured in severity from one person to the next. But the problem is that our children are not healthy. I'm not saying all the children, but I'm saying the majority of the children have a problem where the last time that I checked, because these figures are not readily available, children, by the time they're 7 or 8, they're prescribed 1 to 3 psychotropic drugs in school in order to keep them focused. This is not normal or healthy. So right there, we have a huge problem. So by the time they're adults, their microbiota is now not sufficiently breaking down their food to create energy. And if your insulin is not able to get inside of your cellular structure, you cannot generate energy. Without generating energy, you cannot lose weight. And I'm being simplistic here, Mariah, so please, interject. But that's basically what's happening. People who are having weight issues, we're all sitting too much. We're not exercising, and we're eating foods that have a heavy chemical-laden predominance in it. We're not making food like they do in certain cultures from scratch and feeding your family, where the mother really goes through all the food, or even the father washes the food, makes sure it's healthy and fresh, and make sure that the family has the best quality food every night. And I think this is a big problem in our country, in Canada, in a lot of westernized countries.
Right. And so, I mean, that's very interesting that we do have so many factors contributing to the dysbiosis. As you said, it's a general term, but
Mhm.
and it doesn't just mean that we may or may not have a specific quantity of a certain microorganism that's good for us. in our gut, but also means that it may not be in the right part of the gut where it should
Right.
be, correct? Right.
Right.
So I got that correct. Okay. Now, tell me, Natasha, if someone's looking into taking a probiotic supplement, what
Mhm.
what what is it that should convince that person that I need a probiotic supplement? Who should be taking them, and where is a probiotic supplement contraindicated?
Okay, well, as a probiotic supplement that contains a lactobacillus, which is the genus name, or a bifidobacteria, a certain species, is never contraindicated because we have ruined that communication and that, should I say, symbiotic relationship with the proper probiotic bacteria that have evolved with us as Homo sapiens.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose 4 bacteria that I put in my products and nothing else. And I make sure that each bacteria is grown in the food it likes, not what the human being wants. But that bacteria needs to be stimulated to produce the most beneficial byproducts for not only itself, but for the human host. Those beneficial byproducts, and not just the bacteria, have a profound effect on all parts of our body, including our brain. So when the probiotic bacteria is properly stimulated, because I want to assure everyone, bacteria are a lot smarter than we are. They do not waste their cellular energy because we have a marketing plan. So they are not going to produce this stuff because we want to have a pretty pink box and tell people it's for women or if it's for men. All of my bacteria that I use are for every member of the family, from infant to senior citizen. You don't, all these products that are put there with a mishmash of organisms are there as a marketing. What it needs to be is that the bacteria needs to be completely safe under all conditions and never having any reports of having an adverse effect on the human host. Number two, it needs to be manufactured by someone who knows how to grow it, because it's like asking somebody who brews wine in their kitchen to become a master winemaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same. And I'm not, and let me tell you, making these microorganisms at least 100 times more complicated than being a what they call a fine winemaker or award-winning winemaker. But I'm trying to give somebody an analogy they can understand. So I make the Lactobacillus acidophilus, and the strain is called DDS1 or NAS, depending on what medium I grow it in. And it likes to live in the small intestine because it can live either in the presence of oxygen or in the lack of oxygen. So the whole the small intestinal tract is where it prefers to live. Then I chose a specific bifidobacteria, and that's what we call an obligate anaerobe. Those obligate anaerobes only like to live in the large intestine. And bifidobacteria have now become very prominent because doctors are beginning to be aware of it. But I introduced bifidobacteria to North America in 1986. And again, nobody knew what I was talking about for at least 20 years. But bifidobacteria are in the large intestine in trillions. And they are obligate anaerobes, meaning that the large intestine does not have any oxygen. And that's why they love to live in the large intestine. And they have a very unique function. They're part of our waste and disposal system, because if waste doesn't come out the right way, it's sent back to the liver to detoxify. That's only one bad thing that happens if you don't have sufficient bifidobacteria in your large intestine. And then I chose a third bacteria called Lactobacillus bulgaricus. It's one of the important organisms that ferments yogurt and has been found in healthy cultures for thousands of years. This bacteria is incredible because it's actually one of the very few bacteria that can actually pre-digest the food for you. It helps you with absorbing the proper proteins. It communicates with both your innate and adaptive immune system. In fact, all 3 of my bacteria do that. And it has a profound function inside the GI tract as it travels down along your GI tract with your food, and making sure that the acidic level is proper in the intestinal tract so we can absorb our nutrients and specifically our minerals, which do require a slightly acidic base for them to be properly absorbed. And then the fourth bacteria that I spoke about earlier is the Bifidobacteria infantis, which is so important for pregnant women, nursing mothers, newborn infants, because this bacteria is lacking in westernized cultures. And I believe, it is my opinion of being in this field for 56 years, that is the major cause of this problem we have with allergies, sensitivities, inability to tolerate anything, having learning disabilities, and hyperactivity.
Okay. So the general misconception or the general thought out there is people who are severely immunocompromised should not be taking probiotics. People with a central access line for procedures shouldn't be taking probiotics. So you're saying that as long as bacteria, they have been tested to not show any kind of harmful effect on the host, that they are safe to take even within immunocompromised situations?
Yeah, of course, because you're ingesting bacteria through the air, you're ingesting bacteria through your food, and these bacteria have evolved with us. And so that's why I don't fool around with what I call designer organisms that look good on the label. I only use bacteria that have now, I can say in 40 years, and after having sold more than 10 million bottles, no one has gotten sick. No one has ever got to the urgent care, their doctor, or a hospital. So that's what you're looking for. And by the way, I do not consider any yeast a probiotic. A yeast is a more sophisticated molecular structure. It's something we call the eukaryote and bacteria prokaryote, and that's another lecture. But they should never be used as a probiotic. And a lot of people are selling soil organisms, and yes.
Right, I saw that a lot.
And soil organisms are the dangerous ones. They are the ones that you'd never want to use if you have any immunocompromised condition, because they can turn against the human host and produce toxins, because that's the way they dominate their territory. And that's one of their primal objectives. They're made to survive in the environment, in the soil, so they're way too strong for the human being to take on a regular basis.
So then if we were to like maybe simplify it to to a very simple terms, we're looking at lactobacilli, bifidobacterian strains, and the third one that you mentioned that I can't remember the name of are considered.
Yeah, there's Lactobacillus acidophilus, Bifidobacteria bifidum. That's Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Bifidobacteria infantis. Yeah, bulgaricus. It's called bulgaricus because it was found at the turn of the 20th century by a famous Russian physician in Bulgarian yogurt, and that's why it's called Lactobacillus bulgaricus.
And so, we're looking at those 4 strains for sure to be safe to humans and can be taken in any kind of situation.
Absolutely.
But we're trying to stay away. I'm so sorry to cut you off, but we're trying to stay away from soil microorganisms and yeast in immunocompromised conditions.
And I would not take them under any conditions, because I would say if we have 80% of people chronically ill in this country, they're immunocompromised. They should never be taking soil organisms under any conditions, nor should probiotic bacteria ever be used to treat symptoms. That's not their function.
That is what I think most in clinical settings, that's all I'm seeing is diarrhea, probiotics. And diarrhea is a symptom of something that is going on. So it is definitely being given to treat the symptom. I don't know what's the thought process behind giving it, if the doctors are giving it to essentially treat a symptom, or if they think that it actually treats something to the effect of the cause of diarrhea, which doesn't make sense because that's usually an infection for which they're giving it. What do you say about in SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth situations? Are probiotics the way to go?
Yeah, they're not all probiotics. That's why I'm saying that unfortunately the term has been abused and used incorrectly. I do have powdered probiotics, the Lactobacillus acidophilus powder, in either a vegan or a dairy base, and the Lactobacillus bulgaricus, which you take in a powdered form and you drink in unchilled, filtered water right before meals or anytime you feel a discomfort. And then I tell people to stop eating all raw foods if they have SIBO, to only use well cooked foods and chew each bite 10 times and eat small meals and pay attention to what gives you a problem. You
Right.
know, keep a journal, a food journal. What are you eating?
So
How are
important.
your body reacting? And the reason we have SIBO is because many people have played around with antacids, whether it's, you know, proton pump inhibitors, H2 blockers, just simple antacids. It is one of the most dangerous things we have done in our population and has led to a host of problems, including SIBO.
Yeah, no, I completely, I agree with that part. Like we're definitely overusing, overprescribing antacids for reasons that shouldn't even be, given for. But coming to my next question, so we talked about where it's contraindicated and where it's not. But what makes, I mean, are there randomized clinical trials actually suggesting, because, they are the gold standard for
Mhm.
research, actually suggesting and making a really, causation relationship between,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So are they
Yeah, so
actually
there's, for instance, for Lactobacillus acidophilus and several strains which are almost very similar, very few genetic differences, there's been about 10,000 published articles, multiple clinical trials,
Hmm.
multiple scientific data. It's one of the most studied organisms, and the reason people avoid it is because it's difficult to grow, stabilize, and keep, functional. So that's not, something people want to do who want to make easy money.
Hmm.
But it is the organism that has probably the most literature on it and has been in the literature for at least 100 years. It's found in Soviet literature, Bulgarian literature, Indian literature, throughout the world, in Asia. So acidophilus has been in the literature and very well studied. So there is clinical evidence, but remember, I tell people the whole purpose of probiotics is to change the ecosystem. And when you change the ecosystem, you give the body the tools to heal itself. Diarrhea is something the body does to protect itself. It gathers all the fluid from all the cells to eject something that considers toxic or harmful to the body. So if your diarrhea is not resolved, it means there's something toxic in your body's not able to eliminate, and that's why you have continuous diarrhea. When you get rid of the offender, the diarrhea goes away. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that.
And which strains do you think have proven to be the most effective in?
Well, yeah, the diarrhea. Yeah, I would say my Healthy Trinity product, the oil matrix that has the bacteria, the acidophilus for the small intestine, the bifidobacteria bifidum for the large intestine, and the lactobacillus bulgaricus for the transient flora. I cover the whole intestinal tract so that the body can get rid of the offender and return itself to a normal function. So
Amazing.
I'm not using a bacterium to treat the symptom. I'm creating the holistic environment. And believe me, I have dealt with people who have had diarrhea for 4 or 5 years, who don't have a life, who have to mark a bathroom within a 5 mile radius wherever they travel, famous people who really don't have a life. And I've had repeated thank yous that I've given people back their life because they don't have to mark bathrooms for 5 miles within a distance wherever they travel.
I know it can be terrible when, especially for IBS patients, mostly because there isn't really a go-to treatment for IBS, right? So we're just looking at symptoms and treating symptoms, but cure-wise, as you said, like you're trying to change the ecosystem of the body and that of the gut, and I think that is the holistic approach that might be super beneficial if done correctly. What is something that people should be looking at when they go to buy a probiotic supplement? Is there, so
Yeah.
like for example, for our vitamin mineral supplements, we usually have that the consumer lab seal, the NSF seal that we are talking about. Okay, that
Mhm.
what is something that people should be looking in probiotic supplements that kind of states that, it's a good
Great.
supplement.
Well, we're coming at the half hour, so I have
Yeah.
a wonderful little chart, and I'm going to make a complex subject very easy, because once you see this, you'll understand what not to look for. So you see this chart. So if you follow us to my Instagram account, um, Mariah and I will be happy to discuss what you should look for when you're looking for a probiotic. But I want to tell you that this is available will be available on the Instagram. And I can tell you, anything that looks like a spilt alphabet soup of organisms is a worthless product. And then I'll
Okay.
explain
All
why
right.
I
Let's
say
go to
that.
let's go to our Insta Live now.
Okay, all right. Let's say goodbye for now on this one. On all of you guys who have watched, come and listen to me and Mariah on Instagram, and we'll make everything simple for you to understand. Because believe me, the proper probiotic supplementation is the foundation for health. And I've been doing this for 50 years, and I'm staying because I know we need to change. We need to shift the paradigm, and we need much better understanding. Thank you guys for coming on this part, and see you on Instagram. Bye bye
Okay.
now.
Bye.